1st of June 2024 at 11:55 a.m. here in Snohomish, Washington, United States of America. Welcome once again to our Cosmic Journey, the Dev and Design podcast highlighting our journey towards making the world's best astrology software. Designer Jake here with engineer Trey as always. Hello, Trey. I was supposed to
Hello, Jake.
here, and then I do that, but I didn't do that. Good.
Oh, well, that's fine.
I'm missing all the cues today.
We got it eventually. Also, my mom was walking by the door and probably picked that up on the mic too.
Yeah, we've got family in town. We've got extended family in town. So we have Trey's mother, and we have my mother, and we have my sister and my nephew, and our nephew, I guess it would be fair to say. And while it is 11:55 a.m., I did pick them up at 12:30 a.m. at the airport, drove all the way out here. We didn't go to bed until about 2 or 2:30. So it's a late morning here.
Yeah.
But it's nice.
Nice morning.
And when I picked them up, we were under the modal moon, as it turns out. Oh, what? We weren't. It wasn't a modal moon at all. Modal moons don't mean anything. But what we're going to show today is, after my check-in question, we're going to show the modals for in development. There's a very cute squirrel right in front of me doing cute things. Sorry. And we're going to also show some lunation cycle design stuff that I did. And, as always, we're going to keep it tight. I think the squirrel is trying to get into the Jeep because our car, because as it turns out, like it's a way for rodents to nest. It's always
we've had multiple rodents nesting in the Jeep. It's kind of a
thing that happens with the Jeep, and that's fine. So let's go to the check-in question, and for that we usually do this thing, and then I do this. All right, Mr. Henry.
Yes.
The moon has become a burden to us all. It is a burdenous planet in ancient astrology, satellite in more common context, and they have handed you the keys to the moon, and they said, "Look, we have to do something with this thing. It's ridiculous." What do you do with the moon?
My immediate answer is even more awesome version of the answer that I gave for check-in question a few days ago on what would you do with the Tacoma Dome, which is to build a water park.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about the theme of your moon water park, because I think
that's
going
funny because
going with an like either an astrology or astronomy theme is pretty easy. So what theme would you go with?
I think so my Tacoma Dome theme was going to be a space theme, basically, like like you're on another planet or something like that. But since you are literally on another body, if you're on the moon, and also you have this like lighter gravity sort of thing. I was thinking like something to do with like bouncy houses, like just like taking advantage of the low gravity thing. I think there's a lot of really kind of fun and interesting things you could do with water and low gravity. But yeah, I don't know if I have a great aesthetic theme. I just have a picture in my mind of having an absolute blast at a lunar water park.
Because the moon has low gravity, we're really playing with water and the human aspects of that. So we went to things like bouncy houses, water features. I mean, I like the idea of like, I don't know how a water slide works on the moon. I actually don't know.
Yeah. It probably has to be a tube, more like a fully closed in tube kind of thing. I don't know.
I would assume so, because you don't want to have someone
like
fly off.
But I mean, maybe there are things where you're like taking advantage of the low gravity, so it's like you come out of a slide and then you like pop out and you're like wee,
and then you have to connect to another tube. You have
to maybe. I mean, that sounds a little dangerous, but yeah, maybe.
No one said there's safety standards on the moon. That is definitely not. The moon is kind of like Florida, so there's definitely no safety standard.
There's no safety standard.
Good. Okay. Moon water park. Love that.
Yeah. What about you?
So we're gonna play on my Wisconsin roots and the idea that the moon is made of cheese, and we're going to make a cheese emporium exporium on the moon. And I would like the moon to be the absolute hub of everything universally cheese.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cheese emporium.
So you go to the moon, and there's just a cheese import export. Basically, it's a cheese colony. That's where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I mean, but it all has to be Earth cheeses
Yeah.
at this
There's no
point, right?
practical reason for the moon to have a cheese import exporium. Also, you can't export anything from the moon from cheese because you're not making cheese on the moon. But it's all just there
Well,
to
maybe you can make cheese on the moon. I mean, like they have all that stuff. Like they're growing all these organisms on like the ISS or whatever. Like maybe you could actually have like
cheese moon,
real lunar cheese.
lunar
Yeah.
cheese, lunar
Yeah.
cheese. Sounds like the future. I love it. Okay, Mr. Henry, do you want to? We're gonna do the modal part of this. Are you ready and prepared emotionally and physically for such a thing?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. I did manage to get modals into the product. So I'll start with showing the firmament here. The viewer is very familiar with this at this point.
Indeed,
Last
they are.
last time we showed the
Since
location
episode
picker.
one, as we learned last
Yeah,
week.
yeah, that's way back. But now we have a little modal. And
Ooh.
yes, it's quite nice. There's a lot going on here, and I'll demo a little bit more of where we're going with the practical side of this. But you'll notice that there's sort of like a glassy effect to the background here. There's also a secondary layer of that. So there's actually a little bit of transparency here, which you can't really see in this context, but you'll see in the next context. And then there's some other kind of cool pieces going on under the covers here. So I'll get into that shortly. But if we go to the homepage here, maybe, thank you. This looks a little bit different than last time. And we now have this cast chart button. And if we go to cast chart, you'll see that we have a chart in the background. And so the URL now has moved to /astrology/cast. And this is then popping up. Now, obviously, this is not complete. This is this is a work in progress. But we have a little date picker here, which you can't see the little icon over here, but it's actually like the operating system's date picker. And a time, and then we'll have that location picker also in here pretty shortly. I need to do some refactoring on this because it's not ready to go yet. But one thing that's kind of cool here is that, and we're actually, this is sort of built into, or there's a good example of this in Phoenix, which I didn't actually, which is the web development platform that we use. I didn't actually know anything about this, which is kind of bizarre considering I've been doing web development for a very long time. But there is a thing called focus capture, which is a usability thing, but it actually just really helps everybody. Or sorry, not a use. It's a usability
It's
and
an accessibility
thing.
feature.
Yeah, exactly. So, but what it does is it basically says like if you have something like a modal, even if you have like UI elements under the modal, that if you're tabbing through, like you're cycling through the elements on that modal, it's only going to be within what's called that like focus capture group.
Oh,
So
that's cool.
while this is up, it's only going to go. So like if you've ever been on a website where there's like a pop-up form, and then you're tabbing through things, and all of a sudden you're like
to the things
tabbed
behind
into
it. That happens. to me.
tabbed into elements like on the background page that you can't even see.
Yeah.
This prevents that basically.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it's really cool. And so like I just hit escape to get rid of that. Even though it's behaving like a what we'd call like a single page application. So like me closing this modal is actually not reloading this page at all, right? But you can notice that the URL did actually change. And if I hit the back button, I'm actually going to astrology/cast, but it's not actually like reloading the page, and it won't reload the page when you actually like cast that chart. This is part of the magic of Phoenix and live view, and it's really great. Like it's very, very cool.
There's another thing that I keep talking about, which is this idea of point placement. And point placements are, I mean, I can show you the designs that I did for it. The viewer might recognize this from an episode in January where I showed this as well. So this is the sketching design of point placement, and I think we showed this off one time in January, but now it's May and we're here, and I've made some edits to it based upon kind of what we now know and some better understanding. So as you can see over here to my right, of course, you can see that there is the what's called the point glyph icon. This is what Saturn looks like. Zodiacal longitude, this. I have the name in here, but the name doesn't exist, and I'll show you why in a second when I actually rendered these out in design. And all of these other things, apparent motion, blah, blah, blah. And what happens here is then, depending on what type of point we're talking about, whether it's a planet, a luminary, a chart angle, or the very special luminary known as the moon, you start seeing different things that are popping in here, but they all, and I'm looking at these mini cards here, if this is not showing on my screen.
Yeah, no, it's right.
Okay, good. I didn't know if the mouse was showing.
Yeah, I can see the mouse.
Great. These things, and then also depending on whether you want these things to be, let me zoom in here, by sign or by kind of absolute degree, because there's a lot of Richard Tarnas types that don't like things, done that way. Those things would show up, and they all look similar, but they're not exactly the same. And what we had seen in other astrology software, these things treated kind of universally, how do I put this? Like every point or planet was treated the same, regardless of whether that information made sense or not. So for example, the sun doesn't have variable speeds in relation to the Earth because we travel around the sun. The idea of putting the speed of the sun within a point placement makes no sense. Astrology software does it for you, but we don't know why. They just do it for no good reason.
Yeah, because they built a view that shows the speed of the thing, and it just only ever does that no matter what.
Exactly. So this is the point placement, and showing a little bit of color here of like whether things are moving in retrograde motion or in direct motion, and whether they are going faster, as you can see over here, or slower as they're going over here. But you can see here for the moon, instead of showing the speed, what's more important to show is the lunation cycle. And here I'm showing the waning gibbous moon. And you're like, oh, what a nice waning gibbous icon that you made here, Jake. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's go take a look at it. So now I have the 8-fold lunar phase icons here. Now I say 8-fold because that is a very modern way of thinking about the lunar phase, but we have found now, according to the texts, that there are 10-phase, 10-fold, 11-fold. As we know in Yodish or Vedic astrology, they can even do 28-fold lunar phases, which is called the lunar
which most. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, 27 or 28-fold, which is called the lunar mansions. Trey was going to interrupt me to explain to me that's what that's called, and here I am to explain that.
Yeah.
But these are the icons that we have today for the 8-fold, and eventually we'll do the other folds of this thing. But this is the thing about about astrology. You start to say like, okay, I have a handle of this. I know that there's an 8-fold lunar cycle and that we should show 8-fold. And then you start looking at text and you're like, nope, there's 2, 3, 4, 8, 10, 11, and 28. And you're like, okay. And just everything is always an unfolding tesseract of new things that you get to learn. And so I was very thankful to reading Demetra George's book, Ancient Astrology in Theory and Practice, which has 3 great chapters on the lunar cycle. Thank you very much for that. And yeah, I'm going to stop there because it sounds like the family is approaching the door and is going to break in at any moment. Anything you would like to add about the lunar cycle?
Oh, yeah, just a couple of things really quick. One was that for the viewer who may have been screaming at the screen, but I care about the speed of the moon because
it shows up.
We will have that. It might not be on the mini card, but yeah, we will definitely have that.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because this is all just a priority of information, right? And so just because it doesn't show up on this card doesn't mean it doesn't show up at all. It's just This is the most meaningful information to give someone in this small little card about the moon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
and also just to tease out the like, we understand that there's a difference between degree between sun and moon for lunar phase and the pinned to the zodiac lunar mansions, right? Like they are different ways of understanding like what the position of the moon is in the zodiac,
Right.
or sorry, what the position of the moon is in the chart. But those are slightly different like ways of looking at things. But if you
Right.
think about it in terms of like dividing up the ecliptic for places where the moon can be, then it makes sense at that level.
Yeah, this is why I said 28-fold lunation cycle. And
Yeah,
yes, correct. The 8-fold or 10-fold or 11-fold is the degree between the sun and the moon. The
right.
28-fold is pinned to
Something.
the
Aries one,
yeah,
or
it's right, exactly. It's pinned to the zodiac.
yeah.
Correct. Thank you for all of that clarification. Anything else that you would like to say today? And of course, what should the viewer do today?
Oh, the viewer should spend time with their wonderful family and friends.
Either chosen
Obviously.
family or real family, whatever.
Yeah, I think we've said that one before, but it's always good to repeat.
Good to repeat. We're on a
Yeah.
repeat now. You know what? We've done so many episodes. We're just doing the same thing over and over. Have yourself a lovely Saturday, whatever day you see this episode. Go say hi to your family, chosen family, real family, whatever it takes. Be well and goodbye.
Bye.